Think about this for a second. Who said you couldn't? And while you're thinking about that, who said you wouldn't? And still, while you're dwelling on all of that, who said why you shouldn't? All this stuff, man, goes through our heads. We got people in our lives, certain people in our lives from time to time. They're always trying to give us a prescription, as it were, just like we're doing right now, for how to be, right? And how to maximize it and other things like that. And oftentimes they bring with it their fears. Oftentimes they bring with it their longings. And sometimes they bring with it just some tremendous truths that we need to cleave to, that we need to hold to, that we need to allow to take some root in our lives. But what we've got to determine for ourselves is who said. I mean, what is that all about? And so when I think about who said you wouldn't, there have been a lot of naysayers that were probably afraid of what I could become. So they leveled that against where they were, what they hadn't achieved, and what could be my difficulties in pursuit of this happiness, of this me, of this true self. And then there were people who said you couldn't. And they said you couldn't because of the tide of racism, or the tide of money, or the tide that was ebbing and flowing of whatever concern. So there was a group that said you wouldn't, and there was another group that says you couldn't, and then there was a one group that says you shouldn't. I'm listening to all these fears, and they all end with the not words. It's like would not, should not, or could not. And I'm like, how's this possible? If we're in the land of the free and the home of the brave, how's it possible that you wouldn't? How's it possible that you couldn't? How's it possible that you shouldn't? You know, these things that we hear all the time, if we listen to them long enough, if we listen to their rhythm, if we listen to how often they bang, bang, bang against our consciousness and against our power to flow, we probably will never end up where we could be, because somebody said you wouldn't, somebody said you couldn't, and somebody else said you shouldn't. But here at Savage Will, we're saying you can, you will, you can do all things, and you will live out your I am. And that I am place is a place of actual action. It's a place of actual activity. If I might, there's an indescribable joy that you experience in peak performance. It's a rush, it's a thrill, it's a need to return. It's performing at your best and teaching others how to, and it becomes like an elixir and a reminder to yourself of how you make yourself better, and how you can help make other people better. You begin living your best self internally. You begin to imagine it, you begin to feel it, you begin to smell it, you begin to think it, you begin to write it down, you begin to practice it. And then you start to develop these peak performance principles for potential, PPPP, peak performance principles for potential. And you start to allow yourself to perform at and beyond your potential at a peak level, and you become comfortable with that. And then in the comfort, you determine, I can do more, I can be better. And these become breakthroughs, and they bring a sense of freedom. And very soon, all the internal resistance, those people who said you couldn't, those people who said you wouldn't, those people who said you shouldn't, and even when you believed it, after a while of hitting that peak performance potential, and you're getting past it into a principle of life, very soon your internal resistance falls away, and then the sense of this old self with all its limitations, they break off, they're destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the winner that you are is born on the inside of you. The saboteur of your thinking, of your emotions, dies, and you bury it You give it a proper burial. You give it the burial of its image. You give it the burial of its lies. You give it the burial of its restraints and its constraints. You give it the burial of all the congregation of thoughts that it was baptizing you in and singing and constantly drilling down in your life. You get rid of all of that, the sabotage. You give them all a proper burial, never to rise again. And then you release for yourself a success cycle. You absorb your tasks, your daily must-dos, how you speak your I am into your brain, how you acknowledge that I can do all things, how you realize that there's nothing that stops me from being the very best that I can be today. And in that acknowledgement, in your success cycle, in the tasks that you absorb every day, I need someone's help and I need to help somebody. And as a part of that piece, you begin to plan your victory celebration. And your victory celebration includes all the leaders that you've helped become better and all the leaders that help make you better. Mm-hmm. So in this year right now, as we're talking about this, who said, think about all those people that have tapped into your life that told you you could, that told you you would, that gave you the push to say you should. Think about those people who said those things. And then prepare yourself to give a proper burial to all those people that said you wouldn't, you couldn't, you shouldn't. Get that out of your life. And it's time to live. George, what we got going on with you, man?
Yeah, I got a couple takeaways from what you're talking about there. And it's really important that we don't give too much stock to the naysayers, the people that say you couldn't, shouldn't, or wouldn't. But in kind of the back of your mind, you got to have that motivation. Got to have that opposition fuel you. You can't let it allow you to fold. In terms of, I always think of Michael Jordan when he was benched in high school, right? His high school coach benched him, and that was like the tipping point in a lot of ways of. And then he just upped his level. He upped his game. He upped it. He upped his training. He upped everything. And then one day now he's thanking his coach because then that propelled him 100%. In a way to elevate his game in ways that he wouldn't have otherwise, right? So we have to thank our opposition in that regard and then bury it, like you're saying, and celebrate the victories that we overcame, and that sort of thing. And but we can't let it allow us to fold, right? We can't give too much stock to it and allow it to make us backpedal, right? We need it as fuel, and then we need to focus on the people that have said you can in the past and let that be where our thoughts are, periodically throughout the day, right? And then occasionally we'll think of the opposition, right? And that'll fuel us, but then we'll get back to the plan, back to the successes, back to the people that are encouraging us. And I always have this visualization is really important to me. I always think about this whenever I'm working out, whenever I'm working on a goal. I think of like 5 or 6 people, that have encouraged me, that wish the best for me, that would do just about anything for me, and I have them in my head while I'm doing whatever such and such.
That's that who said you could, you would, you should team.
Exactly. Go ahead. You have that team there in your head. And then you picture what it's going to be like when you achieve that goal and how they're going to have. And it gives me chills right now just talking about it because like those are the people that like that's your tribe. Those are the people that care about you. Like it connects to the mission of why we're here.
Succeeding honors them. That tribe, when you succeed, it honors them. It lets them know that, man, this investment in this cat right here, that little bit that I saw, it works. Like C.T. Cobra said, because we've gained the education and released the indoctrination of the things in our heads that's not true, we realize we can do all things through God. Now today, it's educating us and it's fueling us. That's hot stuff. George, finish that topic, man. You getting on something, dude.
And it's just a matter of keeping your focus there instead of focusing on why you can't, shouldn't, or wouldn't. And who has the controlled opposition of, what you're trying to do in life. And I always picture, me accomplishing great things. And then when you think about it, sometimes it can get overwhelming, but why wouldn't I be able to do that? Why can't I, do all things through God? Like Though
Yeah.
I believe those words to be true, even though at times we do forget that. So that's why the people in your corner, that the five,
They
six,
remind
seven,
you. They
they were.
push you forward. They give you those goody nuggets. They keep it real. They keep it savage for you. In
Mhm.
other words, they keep that fuel coming your way so you can break out of, because they know you. They see something about you. You know, they were in that rhythm. They were in that bounce. They were in that beat one time. And so they see, one, that you have the potential of doing something amazing. Two, because they've been cycled in that garbage before and they gave a proper burial to things that limited them. They can see when you're getting ready to go into that same lockstep because it's the same messaging. And when they see and sense you're going through that lockstep, then they get involved in your life. They interrupt, divine interruption,
Mhm.
intentional interruption. Their purpose is to interrupt your madness and to get your thought processes off of stuff that's going to take you down this rabbit hole for minutes, hours, days, weeks, and months. And they're trying to repurpose you. They're trying to refocus you. They're trying to get you back on track so that you can develop your peak performance potential for the day. And you can get back into your showtime behavior. You can get back to your success cycle. You can get back to that programming that gives you your beginning, it gives you your routine, and it gives you how achievements are felt and how they smell and how they taste and how they impact other people around you. Finish that thing, George.
Yeah, and your environment is really important. Not just the people you listen to, not just the friends and family you have in your life, but also the music you listen to, the podcast, the books you read. Like, I'm joining a book club currently at the moment, and all these things is like I want to be around people that and absorb the information of the direction I want to go. Or else, if you're not actively pursuing that, you're passively falling back into past like programming and past mentality, past cycles, and people wonder why they don't change. It's because they're not actively dragging themselves out of changing the past, right? They're
Process.
continually living in the same cycles of whatever, right? It's like I always think of this example, this experiment this guy did, had a jar of gnats, and he placed them in a jar. Well, he placed like honey or something, and they flew in there. They were attracted to it, and then he put a lid on the jar, and then the honey or whatever it was that got them in there went away, and then they just flew up and down and hit the lid of the jar, hit the lid of the jar, hit the lid of the jar, and then one day he took the lid off, and then they kept that same cycle. They never broke of where the lid was.
Routine.
They're programming their routine, everything about them, just told them to keep hitting that same distance, and they were never able to escape the jar. And there's so much there in terms of like life value, life knowledge. If you don't have an environment that's allowing you to hurdle out of that jar, so to speak, then you're going to get the same results. If you're not doing something differently to take your life in a different direction, and expecting different results, literally the definition of insanity.
Insanity.
And and you have no one else to look at and blame or point the finger at than the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror, and that can be one of the most frustrating places to
Well,
be.
Michael Jackson hit that real good. I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, right? So,
Exactly.
so if we think about that and we dial into this one more beat, you got the success cycle, right? And in the success cycle, you have to absorb your task, and your tasks are your daily must dos. Now, you guys have heard me say this before, but it's worthy of being reintroduced because it deals with into this concept of who said you wouldn't, you couldn't, you shouldn't. And so if I have my success cycle, you write this down. If you have your success cycle, and in your success cycle, you have your tasks that you have to absorb. You must absorb every day. These are your daily must do's. Here's number one daily must do. You must plan your victory celebration. Watch this. I said your victory celebration. I didn't say what leads up to the victory. I said your victory celebration. That assumes you've already conquered, you've already won, and you're already in victory mode. You're already up on that podium, and you're about to receive the gold medal of overcoming your second place person and your third place person of yourself.
Yeah, and that
You're
goes
the
into the visualization, Robbie, that I was mentioning earlier. Is like you picture all the people that are in your corner congratulating you when you've reached your goal, like, and then just the relief
celebrate.
And the high that comes from that, the natural high, obviously, like of knowing you came to Earth and achieved
Fist
exactly.
pumping.
Exactly. And there's just nothing in my mind that could ever compare to that. And one day we will have that experience. And sorry to cut you off there, but that visualization is super important. So,
That's part of the process.
exactly.
Because if you can't see the victory of your celebration, you're not going to have it. And what you've purchased is frustration.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you start your success cycle with plan your victory celebration. At the end of the day, what are you going to celebrate? Find it. I'm celebrating that I came to the end of this day and I'm $240 richer than I was before. I've said my affirmations 3 times in this day, and I've got manifestation of this, that, and the other. And I finished and I feel great. And I didn't let anything intrude my space that was negative. I fought it off.
Mm-hmm.
Plan your victory celebration. And my friend, he reminded me of this. So I remember what they said in Savage Will to plan your victory celebration. And then you're giving yourself the high five. Your second thing, you got to develop your peak performance potential. What the ham sandwich and buttermilk biscuits is a peak performance potential. Here's what it is. It's repetition. It's staying in the process. It's grow each day in your success cycle. It's recording your beginning, your routine, and your achievements. That's part of your peak performance potential. If I made $240 more in stocks or in eliminating debt, whatever the case is, I'm recording that because there's an energy inside of that helped me win. And it had a beginning, it had a routine, and it had the achievement itself. So I'm going to record that. I don't have to write a book on it. I just want to record some little notes. And then I want to get to the place where I can execute, exhibit the actions, the feelings, the smells, the energy, the showtime programming to release, the will to do it. That I am this, I am that. And that's the action step. That's the getting it done. I got to share the story real fast. I went to go see my friend, my childhood buddy. We buddies forever in the days. My boy's my brother. And we were just talking about, when we were coming up. And one of the things he said to me was, he said, when you came over to the house, you used to tell me, come on, let's go work out. And he told me something I forgot. And he said, dude, you used to work out 3 times a day. You work out in the morning, you work out when you got home, and that's after you played sports. And then you worked out before you went to bed. And he said, sometimes I was tired. And you come get me. And I said, no, I don't feel like doing it. And you were like, embrace the pain. You know what I mean? He said, you were saying this to me as a child. And you said, make pain your friend. You said you were telling me this as a child. And then you make me get up and we go work out. And he said, but because of that, when I got to college and when I got into business, I was able to compete at a whole different level. And I didn't want anybody to be better than me. And so even now, I don't want anybody to be better than me. Like E.T. says, don't let anybody outwork you. And so in his execution model, he's got a showtime programming behavior. He's got a showtime language. He's got a showtime bounce that lets him know every day and every moment that he's alive, I'm the best. I'm the greatest. And then you got to duplicate your peak performance process. Repetition is the mother of learning. You got to repeat your PPP. You won't get tired. You won't get exhausted. You're going to get energized because every time you repeat your peak performance process, every time you acknowledge your peak performance potential, every time you celebrate your victory celebration before it even happens, you're reinforcing in your brain, in your psyche, all of your makeup, you have access to becoming greater than your last best self. You have an innate ability to overcome any and everything that tries to rise up against you. You have the potentiality of doing exceeding abundantly above all you can think or imagine. You have no limitations. You just have the process.
Mm-hmm.
And you keep going through the process. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and I told him, I said, my process for learning is I read, I take notes and underline, I record it to listen back to myself, and I read it one more time. Then I own it. I said, that's my process. And I said, so some people think you don't read as fast, you don't accomplish as fast as other people. I said, no, 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 no. It doesn't mean I don't accomplish as fast. It means that this is my process and my process works. So once I finish my process, I own it and I can do it and I can say it. I can replicate it anytime I need to. And that goes to the last part of the process. Replicate your peak performance in other people. See, in personal peak performance, your scorecard is how many other people did you make great? How many other people are calling you up? How many people in your life are giving you a high five and a thank you? I mean, are you stealing thunder from other people? Or are you making other people great? Are other people calling you up? Are you celebrating together the
Mhm.
community?
Oh, looks like we lost Robbie. But one of the key points that he was talking about was that stood out, I think, is are you a fountain or are you a drain? Are you feeding people's lives or are you draining people's? And sometimes we can waver back and forth between what we're doing and what role we play, but we predominantly want to be fountains. Are we absorbing information? Are we giving people information? Are we giving people tools to, go out and be more productive, more useful, more helpful, beneficial, loving people in society? What is our goal? What are we looking to do? So if there's one takeaway from this episode, is who said is like, what are you saying? What are you doing? What are you believing? Right. So that's one of the takeaways. We're going to go ahead and cut the episode here. Just want to shout out. Looks like, oh, he's
And
back.
so peak performance is when you're actually prepared
Hey,
for
Robbie, you there?
those listening
You cut
today.
out
Yeah,
there
I'm
for a
here,
minute.
man. You
Yeah, you
there?
cut out.
All right. Well, listen, I'm finishing up right here, man. For those listening today, it's because you are peaking and you're ready to master you. This is your season of peak performance. Go to that place, go to that person that's encouraging you. If this message is encouraging you, go and give us some high fives, man, and tell us what part of it resonates with you. Even in listen, even in the fact that we lost connection, we didn't lose connection. We still right here. So just to everything we're speaking, sometimes there is an interruption, and that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes you dial back in to the most important thing. I am going to be a peak performer. My process is going to work. My potential is going to continue to elevate, and I'm going to be everything I need to be. And I'm going to change the world one person, one family at a time. I'm in it to win it, and I'm changing the game. This is Savage Will, baby. George, bring us out of here, man.
Yeah, one of the things I was saying when you jumped out there real quick was, are you? Sometimes when we have to evaluate our circle, we have to evaluate ourselves, and because our circle was formed because of who we were, right? And if we're looking to make these changes and everything, we can't just blame our circle. We have to ask ourselves, what about us attracted that circle into our lives, and
That's
how
right.
do I change who I am? How do I help uplift? Because maybe your circle can change with you. Maybe they can't. Who knows? Like, so I was saying, are you being a fountain or are you being a drain? One litmus test I always like to say is, when people speak, is my reaction generally positive, negative, or neutral? And why? Right? Why am I choosing to see the lens of this situation in a
Right.
negative or neutral way? Why can I not see, oh, there's always a silver lining, there's always a glass half full, there's always a way to work through it? So sometimes the who said you couldn't, wouldn't, and shouldn't is in between your own ears. So we got to
That's right.
question, and then that leads into the people around us and everything like that. So my question for people moving forward is, are you being a fountain or are you being a drain? Are you giving life or are you taking life? Or, and when I say life, I mean, are you serving others with your skills, knowledge, and talents, and looking to craft those things, or are you saying why you couldn't, shouldn't, or wouldn't do that?
Hey man, Curtis dropped some nuggets in there. Curtis said, he said, sometimes to get there, we must actually repent, put that old baggage in the trash, call it done, and make the statement. I guess to the peak performance, I couldn't see the other part. And CT Cobra said, strong head, hard heads make a soft behind in life. Education, God's word is education of life. It brings us to the yes. Man, all this stuff right here is hot. What you just finished saying, George, is looking at that creator, that visionary that's on the inside of you between your two ears, and is that visionary a strategic thinker, leveraging the data and data mining for the right kind of people in your life, for the right kind of results that you're looking for in your life. You got to find that. You got to, and is that thing, that person between your ears, is it a strategic thinker? Right? Is it a strategic planner? Is it forming, storming, norming, performing, transforming, and letting you know at each one of these stages something great is happening in your life? Is it the genius culture that you're really trying to develop? Right? Oh, Curtis said, make the statement to yourself to change, to get those results. Hey man, this is what this thing is all about. Get the vision. Is the thing between your head? Are you putting in a new vision? Are you getting ready to go live with a brand new launch of yourself, a concept, an inception, right? Do you have the bandwidth and the capacity to do what you're planning to do? And sometimes when you start to feel that angst and that worry that possibly you can't, that's only because you've been listening to something so long. It's an old pattern. You got to break the record, man. Man, I'm so glad I came up in the age of vinyl, right? Because if it was any records that we didn't like when we were coming up, we just break the vinyl. It was over. So in a sense, we were just done with the messaging and everything else. Now everything is on the stone called CDs and in cyberspace. Hard to break that, but you got to break that cycle, man. You got to break it, and you've got to get your new visionary, and that includes new groups, right. George, you got a new group of people, man. I'm in a new phase in my life. The people that's been in my life before, I don't have room for that, especially if it was negative. Strategic thinker, are you going to be the strategic thinker and leverage your data? You understand? Are you going to create a performance library? Are you going to be a strategic planner? Make sure you got the right people at the right place, at the right design. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. Learn how to give. Give away this new stuff that you're becoming. Because when you learn that, when I give away something of what I'm saying, don't give away your whole package. Don't give away your whole strategy, your whole vision, because then somebody else, a dream assassin, will come along and crunch that thing up, and you give out too much information. But give what you learn to pull somebody up, and then keep moving. You understand? Don't give them all your details and your new part of your journey. If you can teach folks to be better than you, it enlarges your territory in life. Be the root, man. That came from CT. Man, we got some great interaction over here on this side right here, George. So some good stuff that's coming in right now, guys. You all got a piece of it, and that's what we was talking about. If you're here right now, you're taking the next big step. If you're here right now, who said? You said I could. You said I would. You said I should. It's your time, baby.
Mm-hmm.
So change your game, change your life, change your process. Get ready to celebrate your big stuff and how many people you've helped along the way. Stop being a taker. Learn how to be a giver and learn how to be a celebrator along the way. Don't give up. Don't give in. Crush the adversary. It's between your head.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And then one thing I would just mention is the power of gift giving on the very subliminal level is like buying a drink for somebody, giving them a piece of gum. Like think about when you were back in high school or middle school and you had the kid in gum or the kid in class that had the gum. And then everyone was like, "Oh, hey, give me a piece, give me a piece." And it's like you that was just on the very most subtle level providing. If you asked people if they wanted a piece, like that was the whole difference. So and then their perception in like the perception of your friends in your mind, of how they see you as someone who's willing to give. They're not a taker. They're willing to more like go out on a limb for that person.
Sure.
And that's a very simple view, but like when you take the time to think about other people and what they value, and then you get good at gift giving, then you will receive the best gifts. You will receive the best help when you are in a time of need.
100%.
People won't question it, and then people just they recognize that and they value that more than anything, or
George, that's
more
hot.
than most things. So,
That's hot, George.
again,
That's hot.
back to it. Are you being a fountain or are you being a drain? How are you lifting people up with your words, actions, thoughts, feelings, emotions? So we're
Hey,
going to go ahead.
let me hit you with something, George.
Yeah.
I mean, because you sparked something, you woke something up on the inside of me, man. I was getting ready to say we got to close this out. Hey guys, give us about 3 more minutes. It puts us at 33 minutes. All right. So give us 3 more. We asking you for 3 more. Check it. Look at. I was talking to this cat the other day, right? And before I talked to him, I got this message, and this message said, something to the effect of, it would be nice if you can meet that person that can help pull you up to get you to the next level, right? Something along those lines. And I was like, that's hot. And I'm like, Lord, I want that. Somebody to help pull me up, get me to the next level. So I let it happen. And then I got an opportunity to talk to this cat on the telephone. He just got out of prison, and he was trying to restart his life. And so we got to talking, and I made a commitment to him. And I said, I'm going to commit you to this, but my expectation is that you're going to do these things right here. I'm going to give you a list of things to do, and I need you to do those things. So he started trying to do it, but he didn't have the right equipment. But what he did have that was the best equipment, he had to drive. And so he kept calling me, kept calling me, and kept calling me. He needed somebody to help get him to the next level. And so I started breathing before he called, because he was calling excessively. And each time he called, I started to breathe. I said, let me get this thing under control, because it was pulling something from me. And so I said, whoa, 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 dude, whoa, whoa, whoa. You asked God to send you somebody that take you to the next level. This person probably prayed the same thing. You made a commitment that you would do that, and this is what he needs. So I took the deep breath. I called the joker back, because we were missing each other on the phone. I texted the joker back. We kept on talking. The joker said, can you talk to this person for me, because they don't believe? I said, no problem. Said, can you talk to this joker right over here for me, because they don't believe? I said, no problem. And so whatever was necessary to get his community believing around him, I talked to those people. I made the sacrifice. In other words, there's a principle called give first. In the ministry of number 2 that I teach to a lot of leaders, called ministry of number 2, everybody wants to be number 1. But when I look over the scriptures, the number 2s, they rock the house. You understand? Jesus is a number 2 to God, rock the house. Moses had Joshua, rock the house. Moses preceded all the others that came before him, rock the house. The ministry of number 2, Joseph fed all the world, right? And the king was the king, but Joseph fed the world. He came up with the strategy, ministry of number 2. The key part to this whole thing is everybody that enters the ministry of number 2, they give first. They give first. You understand? And so the number one learns how to give first. And it makes the number 2 look glorious. It makes the number 2 look outstanding. But what you got to do is you got to learn how to play in number 1. And you got to learn how to be number 2. Amen. Because you can give more when you're number 2. You got to help somebody that's the number 1 become better at being number 1. Sometimes you got to help somebody that's a number 2 be better at being a number 2. But the key part to this whole thing is give first. We're a taker society. America is a taker society. We take everything. We take everything. We expect people to give us everything. We got this entitlement disposition. But when you give first, man, do you realize you set in motion a reciprocating effect on life? People and situations automatically are geared to give back to you. Give and it'll come back to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaking together, running over. Will men give, pile on into your bosom. Give first. Hey, man, who said you couldn't, you wouldn't, you shouldn't? You should be the one to say, I said I can, I will, I should. Man, this is good stuff, man. CT says God makes room for your gift. God grows us out 2 by 2. That's cool. And Jesus sent the disciples out 2 by 2. Go on, CT. Go on, preach. Get your preach on. Get your preach on. All right, I love it, man. I love it. George, take us out, man. Hey, guys, we took
I love it.
19 seconds more, Jack. So we apologize. We'll make it up next week. George, come on, bring us home, baby.
I love it. We're going to go ahead and cut it. We could probably go all day. But guys, thanks for listening today. Thanks for the comments. We really appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to go ahead and cut it out today. We got another good one coming next Saturday at 11:11 on the East Coast. Robbie, I appreciate you. I love you. I enjoyed it as always. We're going to cut it today. Y'all have a
Hey,
blessed
CT
day.
says that was chewing gum and a glass of water, man. She liked that, dude.
There it is.
I love it.